Thanks, Peter. It's an honor to be in Hungary as my first trip here as the Secretary of State. I'll be meeting with Prime Minister Orban and Defense Minister Benko. Peter, it was great to meet with you and your team as well. It's especially important to be here on this 30th anniversary of the end of communism. For 3 decades, the Hungarian people have worked to build a free and prosperous nation in the heart of Central Europe. The United States has been with you from the outset through trade, foreign assistance, defense partnerships, and people-to-people ties between our two countries. In doing so, we're continuing a long tradition of American Hungary standing together on the side of freedom. I was a former cavalry officer a few years back. I'm indebted to Colonel Michael Kovács, a founder of the U.S. Cavalry, who fought and died for American freedom in our War of Independence. And I recall Lincoln's resolution of support for Kossuth when he declared that America stood with Hungary in our continued devotion to the principles of free institutions. I'm in Central Europe this week and to talk about how we renew and deepen this special bond between our countries. That begins with strong defense. Peter announced, and I'm happy to announce alongside him, the conclusion of the Defense Cooperation Agreement. This will be great for each of our two countries. And I welcome, too, your announcement today that you'll be acquiring new defense capabilities from the United States as well. These steps, together with Hungary's commitment to spend 2% of GDP on defense and a strong presence in Afghanistan, strengthen Hungary's and NATO's security. You need look no further than Ukraine, Hungary's next-door neighbor, to see why this is needed. Today I spoke with the Foreign Minister about the urgent importance of supporting Ukraine in its quest for sovereignty and territorial integrity. We must not let Putin drive wedges between friends in NATO. Hungarians know all too well from their history that an authoritarian Russia will never be a friend to the freedom and sovereignty of smaller nations. Russia is not the only power that wants to erode freedom in this region. I raised with Peter today the dangers of allowing China to gain a bridgehead in Hungary, and we talked openly about how we might work together on that issue. There's an experience of states in the Asia-Pacific region that shows that Beijing's handshake sometimes comes with strings that will leave Hungary indebted both economically and politically. You know, the difference is that Russia and China are authoritarian powers who do not share our joint aspirations of freedom. Today I met with Hungarian civil society leaders as well to talk about the importance of protecting and strengthening democratic institutions throughout the Western world. Americans and Hungarians have always stood together in the pursuit of freedom, and that tradition continues today. It's why I'm so proud of the American engagement with this country in the Trump administration. I opened by talking about the 30th anniversary of the end of communism. I'm announcing new initiatives that will strengthen the U.S. presence in Central Europe, region-wide. We are increasing support for people-to-people ties, events, and exchanges. It's consistent with both the United States and Hungary's mission. As part of this effort, I'm happy to announce that the addition of Hungary to the Future Leaders Exchange Program, which will provide scholarships for Hungarian high school students to spend a year living with U.S. families and attending American schools. I told Peter they all had to come to Kansas. That's my home state. We're also increasing support to help Hungary in its fight against corruption, strengthening law enforcement cooperation, and providing mentorships, training, and exchanges for independent media in all 4 Visegrad countries. You know, too often in the recent past, the United States was absent from Central Europe. That's unacceptable. Our rivals filled those vacuums. Today, we reaffirm our determination to compete for positive influence in the region. We'll do so through a reinvigorated diplomacy that seeks to cooperate strategically, but also allows us to frankly discuss areas where we disagree in a manner that befits allies. And we'll do so by expanding America's commercial, public diplomacy, and cultural ties. We have every expectation that Hungary will do its part to keep the commitment that it made 30 years ago. It is every ally's responsibility to keep Europe free, just as Hungary did in 1948, 1956, and 1989. We have full confidence that you'll continue to stand on the side of freedom, and it's been a joy to be with you today.
Köszönjük szépen. Most újságírói kérdések következnek. Egy-egy kérdésre van lehetőség az amerikai és a magyar sajtó részéről. Az első kérdés az amerikai sajtóé. Krisztina.
Thank you. Mr. Secretary, you spoke about pushing back against the influences of rivals in Eastern Europe, mainly China and Russia. How do you counter the objectives of those two states in the region? And in your talks with leaders today, do they feel the same way about the threat that you do? And if I may have follow-up, will you discuss the rule of law, press freedom, and human rights at your dinner with President Orbán tonight?
So the answer to your second question is, of course, among friends, we always talk about the important issues. America has always stood for that set of values. And I'm confident that we'll have a good discussion about that. It's very important. With respect to the first issue, or the first question, the way you engage is to compete. America was a no-show. When we're not here, others will follow, and they'll show up. And there'll be a duty on behalf of the country where America is absent to do the right things for their people. And when America is absent, that won't be in America's best interest. So we've taken a fundamentally different approach in the Trump administration. We've now had 14 senior-level U.S. visits throughout Central Europe in just the first 2 years of this administration. I won't tell you how many there were in the previous administration, but it starts with a Z. This is important. The way we achieve these outcomes, the way that we begin to develop relationships that are important, where we come to have shared understandings, is to be present, to have conversations, to have hard conversations when that's what's required. We do that. We had good conversation today, and I'm very confident we'll continue to do that in the days and weeks and months ahead.
Thank you. And Mr. Minister, if I may, you said it was easy to discuss things like Russia and China with the U.S. Do you feel that your two countries are on the same page when it comes to that issue? And are you willing to distance yourself from Russia and China in order to get closer to the U.S.? And what are you looking for from the U.S. in return? Thank you.
Look, we are NATO allies. When it comes to cooperation with Russia or cooperation with the People's Republic of China, that does not harm us being a reliable, or does not endanger us being a reliable ally to the United States and to NATO. If you look at our cooperation with China, we represent 1.2% of the trade between the European Union and the People's Republic of China. If you look at that Chinese company, which is very often in the news nowadays regarding telecommunication, are they present in Hungary? Yes. Who are their major contractors? A German and a British company. So when it comes to China, I think hypocrisy should be left finally behind. We are usually accused, Central Europeans, that the so-called 16+1 format is so much breaking the European unity. Now, out of the 16 countries involved in this cooperation, 11 are members of the European Union. You know how many % of EU-China trade 11 of us represent? Less than 10%. So I think it's not us who will be the game changers in the relationship between, let's say, the Western world and China. And when it comes to Russia, I told the Secretary as well that there's an enormous hypocrisy and political correctness in the European political arena in this regard. Because look, it's not the Hungarian, it's not the Central European energy companies which are preparing and building Nord Stream 2 together with Gazprom. It was not the Hungarian Prime Minister to be invited as a superstar at the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, but it was the French President. It was not the leaders of the Hungarian energy companies to sit together on the stage with President Putin on the last Russian Energy Week, but the CEOs of the biggest Western European energy companies. Look at the trade figures. Look at the trade figures between the Western European countries and Russia. And you will see that that we are, let's say, fed up in a legitimate way that you usually portray us as having a tight relationship to Russia.
Következő kérdés a Megy, Noémi.
Köszönöm szépen, Németi Noémi vagyok az M1 híradótól. Miniszter úr beszélt a magyarországi gázbeszerzés diverzifikációjáról. Mit lehet tudni egy esetleges Romániából érkező gázvezeték magyarországi nyomvonaláról? Magyarország nyitott lenne erre, illetve támogatja Magyarország az amerikai cseppfolyós gáz horvátországi terminálját? Köszönöm.
Szóval nézzék, Közép-Európában jelenleg mi egyoldalú függőségben vagyunk az energiabeszerzések kapcsán Oroszországtól, és ez különösen igaz a gázbeszerzésekre. Magyarország esetében ez úgy néz ki, hogy 85%-át a gázimportunknak Oroszországból fedezzük. És mi mindent megtettünk annak érdekében, magyarul minden szükséges beruházást végrehajtottunk annak érdekében, hogy más forrásból is tudjunk gázt vásárolni. Most abban a helyzetben vagyunk, hogy kizárólag a szövetségeseinken múlik, hogy diverzifikálni tudjuk-e a gázbeszerzési forrásainkat. Hogyha az ExxonMobil meghozza a döntését, hogy elkezdi a kitermelést Romániában, tudunk onnan gázt venni. Hogyha a horvátok végre piacképes árajánlatot tennének, akkor tudnánk talán majd valamikor vásárolni a Krüki LNG terminálból is. De most gondoljanak bele, a Horvátországból jelenleg nekünk adott ajánlat szerint a szállítási költség a Krüki LNG terminál és Magyarország között 50%-kal magasabb, mint amennyire a rotterdami LNG terminálból vehetjük meg a gázt. Hát, bárki azt gondolja, hogy ez egy komolyan vehető ajánlat. És természetesen az sem véletlen, hogy a szlovénokkal közösen pályázunk európai forrásra annak érdekében, hogy a magyar-szlovén gázvezeték rendszereket össze tudjuk kötni, és megnyíljon az út az olasz LNG terminálok felé is. De még egy dolgot tudnunk kell, hogy Nyugat-Európának ma nem érdeke, hogy Közép-Európa diverzifikálni tudja a gázbeszerzési forrásait. Mert ha a nyugat-európaiaknak ez érdekük lenne, akkor például ők nem építenének egy új gázbeszerzési útvonalat Oroszország és Németország között, amely évente több mint 50 milliárd köbméter gáz fog tudni szállítani. 50 milliárd köbmétert, ez több mint 5-szöröse a magyar éves fogyasztásnak. Egy ilyen gázvezeték épül ma Oroszország és Németország között, ezáltal Nyugat-Európa energiabiztonsága javulni fog, mi meg itt állunk, és hát várjuk azt, hogy a szövetségeseink és rajtunk kívülálló szereplők olyan döntéseket hozzanak, hogy mi is tudjunk más forrásból, vagy más útvonalon gázt vásárolni.
I'll just add very quickly, this isn't about selling American gas. This is a national security matter from the American perspective. This is about assisting countries throughout Europe at having alternative sources and not being dependent on Russia for their natural gas, so that if there's a day and when there's crunch time and when there's political influence to be had, these countries have alternatives. They are not solely dependent and therefore at political risk to be suffering from Russian engagement that they do not welcome.